The traditions of descendants of West African slaves who live in the United States are being showcased here in Washington. The exhibit at the Smithsonian Anacostia Community Museum also profiles an African-American scholar whose research first connected the Gullah-Geechee people with the language of their ancestors. VOA's Chris Simkins has more.
An estimated 500,000 Gullah people make their homes along coastal stretches of the Carolinas, Georgia, and Florida. Dorothy Brunner Hubler is a retired professor who uses song, dance, and colorful stories to teach people about her upbringing in a Gullah community in South Carolina. She says Gullah people are direct descendants of people from West Africa who were brought to America as slaves in the 17th and 18th centuries. They make up what many say is the most authentic African American community in the U.S.
We are the only group of African Americans in the country who know where we are from and who have maintained our culture, history, and ways, our cooking traditions, and many of our, the spiritual gifts that we wish to share with the other parts of the world.
The Gullahs worked on rice plantations. Despite slavery, they were able to pass along African cultural traditions such as boat building, basket making, and ritual songs. The exhibit at the Smithsonian's Anacostia Museum focuses on African-American scholar Lorenzo Dal Turner. He did pioneering research in the 1930s on the origins of the Gullah people. Many of the photographs on display were taken by Turner. He discovered that the Gullah people retained and passed on their culture through music and storytelling.
That thing feeling thick like a thumb, but he laughed hard as really trying.
Using early audio recording equipment, Turner captured and studied the voices of Gullah people, speaking their own language. He rejected the notion that Gullah language was bad or broken English. He said it was a mix of African dialects, English, and Creole. Alcione Amos curated the Turner exhibit.
I was first impacted by his intelligence, his ability to make the connections and to learn several languages in order to understand what he was researching.
Ricardo Williams came to see the exhibit. He grew up in a Gullah community on James Island in South Carolina.
And the main thing with this exhibit is that folks who are not from the island, they find that a lot of traditions and things that we still maintain and still do, that their families were doing that. And they are now exploring, more of their family tree.
Tim Moore, another visitor, said the exhibit will ensure that future generations, especially African Americans, know something about their history.
Well, what this does is it wakes people up to realize that who they are and what their ancestors are is who they are, and it is very important.
That's especially true since over the years, many of the elderly Gullah people have died. Others have been forced from their lands in part because of development, which made the land so valuable and property taxes so high that few Gullahs could afford to stay. Dorothy Hubler says she's determined to carry on the traditions of the Gullah people.
We have represented the foundation of the Black culture. And at this day and time, we are a dying culture, and we must keep it alive.
Many people agree and say the rich history of the Gullah people, some of the country's first black landowners, must be maintained for future generations. Chris Simkins, VOA News, Washington.